Imagine a nation blessed with mighty rivers flowing from the world's highest mountains, a land where water should have been our greatest strength, yet it has too often become our greatest weakness. Year after year, floods wash away villages, farmers cry over ruined crops, and cities sink under the weight of water that could have been our wealth. At the same time, across the border, new plans are being drawn, new dams are being built, and strategies are unfolding that could decide the fate of generations in Pakistan. And while the world watches silently, even powerful voices have begun to issue warnings, reminding us that this is not just about water. It is about power, survival, and the future of an entire region. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey that goes beyond headlines, beyond statistics, and into the heart of what truly threatens us and what could ultimately save us. This is not just a speech about floods or dams. It is about choices. Choices that will decide whether Pakistan stands strong or continues to stumble. Stay with me till the very end, because what you will hear today is not just a message. It is a wake-up call, a reminder that the time to act is now, and that together, we still have the power to shape a different destiny. Floods in Pakistan have become one of the most destructive and recurring tragedies in recent decades, leaving behind trails of human suffering, economic loss, and shattered infrastructure. Every few years, monsoon rains intensify, riverbanks overflow, and entire villages are swallowed by water, displacing millions of people. Families lose their homes, farmers lose their crops, and children are left without schools or proper shelter. What makes this crisis more painful is that the impact of these floods is not limited to one season. The destruction lingers for years. As destroyed farmland takes time to recover, displaced communities struggle to rebuild, and poverty deepens in areas that are already vulnerable. This recurring cycle pushes the poor further into hardship, creating a generational impact where progress is constantly undone by natural disasters. The severity of the floods is not just a matter of heavy rainfall, it is a reflection of deeper structural problems. Pakistan lacks proper flood management systems, modern drainage infrastructure, and large water storage facilities that could absorb excess rainfall. Much of the water that inundates the fields and cities eventually flows into the sea unused, instead of being stored for agriculture and electricity generation. At the same time, deforestation and unplanned urbanization have worsened the situation. Forest cover that once absorbed rainwater has been cut down, while cities expand without planning for water management. As a result, when torrential rains hit, the water has no controlled path, and destruction becomes inevitable. Climate change has made the challenge even more dangerous. Scientists note that Pakistan is among the countries most vulnerable to rising global temperatures, with melting glaciers in the north and erratic rainfall patterns in the monsoon belt. This means that floods are no longer rare disasters, but a recurring part of Pakistan's environmental reality. In 2022, for example, 1/3 of the country was submerged, affecting more than 30 million people and causing damages worth billions of dollars. These figures highlight not just a humanitarian crisis, but also an economic disaster that derails development, reduces investor confidence, and burdens the national budget with relief and reconstruction efforts. The most painful aspect of these floods is that their impact is preventable with the right strategies. Countries with strong water management systems, advanced technology, and proper urban planning face heavy rains without comparable devastation. In Pakistan's case, weak governance, corruption, and neglect of long-term solutions have left the population exposed to floods year after year. Until the state invests seriously in infrastructure, disaster management, and sustainable policies, the people of Pakistan will continue to face the same suffering, watching their hard work and hopes drowned by forces that could have been controlled. The development of dams in Pakistan has long been seen as both a necessity and a missed opportunity. On one hand, dams are the most effective tools to manage water, prevent flooding, and generate cheap electricity. On the other, political divisions, financial hurdles, and delayed execution have kept this vision from becoming reality. Pakistan's rivers carry enormous volumes of water during the monsoon season, much of which goes to waste by flowing directly into the sea. If this water were stored in large reservoirs, it could be used to irrigate millions of acres of farmland, support industries, and provide reliable drinking water for growing urban populations. Instead, every year, the same rivers that could bring prosperity often turn into forces of destruction, overwhelming communities and destroying livelihoods. Dams also hold the potential to transform Pakistan's energy crisis. The country has struggled for decades with electricity shortages, rising fuel imports, and costly power generation methods. Hydroelectric dams could provide a long-term, sustainable solution by generating clean and affordable energy, reducing dependence on oil, gas, and coal. Neighboring countries with fewer water resources have managed to achieve stability in power supply through efficient dam construction and water management. Pakistan, despite having some of the world's most powerful rivers, still relies heavily on imported fuel to keep its lights on, which drains foreign reserves and increases inflation. Building more dams could reverse this cycle and give the economy the breathing room it desperately needs. Another major benefit of dams is their role in disaster control. During times of heavy rainfall, dams can hold back excess water and release it gradually, preventing the sudden overflow that causes massive floods. At the same time, in dry seasons, the same stored water can be released to sustain crops and maintain river flows for ecological balance. This balance is vital for an agricultural country like Pakistan, where millions of people depend directly on farming for their survival. Without proper water storage, farmers are left at the mercy of unpredictable weather, either struggling with floods that drown their crops or with droughts that leave their fields barren. Yet despite all these benefits, dam development in Pakistan has been plagued by delays, court cases, and political disputes. Projects like Kalabag Dam have been debated for decades without progress because of mistrust between provinces and a lack of consensus on resource sharing. International donors hesitate to invest due to political instability, and domestic leadership often chooses short-term fixes over long-term solutions. This lack of vision has cost the nation not just billions of dollars, but also countless opportunities for stability and growth. Dams could have been Pakistan's shield against floods and its engine of prosperity, but until leadership shows determination and unity, this shield remains unfinished and the engine never starts. India's new strategic water plans have created a serious wave of concern in Pakistan because they directly influence the lifeline of its rivers and agriculture. Under the Indus Waters Treaty, signed in 1960, India and Pakistan agreed on the distribution of the rivers that flow from the Himalayas into both countries. Pakistan was granted rights to the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, while India retained control over the Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej. For decades, this arrangement provided some degree of stability despite tense political relations. However, in recent years, India has increasingly sought to reinterpret and exploit the treaty's clauses by announcing new dams and water diversion projects on rivers that ultimately flow into Pakistan. While India argues that these projects are for hydroelectric generation and within treaty rights, Pakistan fears they will reduce downstream water availability, which is critical for its agriculture-based economy. These concerns are not just hypothetical. Pakistan's irrigation system depends heavily on a consistent supply of river water to feed crops such as wheat, rice, and cotton, which form the backbone of its food security and exports. Even small disruptions in water flow can devastate farming communities, lead to food shortages, and create ripple effects throughout the economy. If India holds back water during critical sowing or harvesting periods, Pakistan could face massive agricultural losses. On the other hand, the sudden release of stored water could also trigger unexpected flooding downstream, compounding the disasters Pakistan already faces during monsoon seasons. This dual threat, either too little or too much water, highlights the vulnerability created by India's expanding dam network. At the same time, India's plans must be understood within a broader geopolitical context. Water security is increasingly becoming a tool of power politics in South Asia. By building dams and controlling flows, India positions itself to exert pressure on Pakistan not just militarily or diplomatically, but through the very source of life, water. In times of heightened tension, even the perception that India could cut off or manipulate flows adds to Pakistan's sense of insecurity. This strategic advantage strengthens India's bargaining position in any future negotiations or disputes. Pakistan has tried to counter these moves by appealing to international arbitration and by raising the issue in global forums. But such steps have had limited effect. International bodies may acknowledge Pakistan's concerns but rarely enforce strict limitations on India. The situation underscores the urgent need for Pakistan to develop its own water storage and dam infrastructure so it can withstand potential disruptions. Without robust systems in place, Pakistan will remain at the mercy of India's upstream decisions, making its future more fragile in a region already burdened by historical mistrust and rivalry. Water security has increasingly emerged as the hidden battlefield of South Asia, where rivers and reservoirs may shape the region's future as much as armies and weapons. Unlike oil or gold, Water is a resource that sustains life directly, and in countries like Pakistan and India, where agriculture employs millions and food demand continues to rise, the control of rivers has the power to determine national survival. While military tensions between the two nations often dominate headlines, the less visible struggle over water resources could define the next era of their rivalry. Both sides are aware that without stable access to water, economic growth, political stability, and even internal peace could unravel. This awareness makes rivers and dams more than environmental concerns. They are instruments of power and leverage. For Pakistan, which depends on the Indus River system for almost all its agricultural production, water insecurity is an existential threat. The country is already facing severe water stress due to population growth, climate change, and inefficient irrigation systems. If upstream control further reduces the flow, Pakistan's capacity to feed its people and sustain its economy will be endangered. The irony is that the same rivers that provide hope during good seasons can quickly turn into tools of pressure when neighboring India controls their flow. In an environment where political trust is already minimal, even the suggestion of upstream manipulation adds to Pakistan's anxiety. For India, on the other hand, controlling water infrastructure provides both strategic defense and bargaining power. It creates the possibility of influencing Pakistan without engaging in open conflict, a quieter but equally potent form of dominance. Globally, experts warn that future wars will be fought over water rather than oil, and South Asia illustrates this possibility clearly. The competition for rivers is not only between states but also within them, as provinces and communities dispute water distribution domestically. In Pakistan, provinces like Sindh and Punjab already clash over water rights, and reduced inflows from India could magnify these internal tensions, destabilizing the country further. Similarly, in India, competing regional interests often complicate national planning. Thus, water security is both a regional and domestic fault line, making it even more volatile. The path forward demands foresight and cooperation, yet history shows that mistrust has outweighed collaboration in this region. Without visionary leadership, both nations risk turning rivers into weapons rather than shared lifelines. Whoever masters water management and secures reliable access to rivers will hold a decisive advantage in South Asia, not only in terms of economy but also in terms of survival and sovereignty. This is why water security, though less visible than border disputes or military buildups, may become the most decisive battlefield of all. Donald Trump's warning to Narendra Modi highlights the way global powers perceive the fragile balance of South Asia, where disputes are no longer just about borders or trade, but also about the control of vital resources like water. While Trump is often remembered for his blunt and sometimes controversial statements, his words carry weight because they reflect the concerns of the wider international community. The United States and other world powers know that Pakistan and India are not ordinary neighbors. They are nuclear-armed rivals with a history of wars, deep mistrust, and ongoing disputes that can escalate quickly. In such an environment, policies related to rivers, dams, and water distribution are not just local development matters, but potential triggers for regional instability with global consequences. Trump's warning to Modi is significant because it underscores the risks of aggressive water policies that could disrupt the delicate equilibrium of the Indus Waters Treaty. The treaty has survived wars and diplomatic breakdowns, but unilateral actions by India threaten to weaken its credibility. If India continues to pursue dam projects without addressing Pakistan's concerns, the perception of treaty violations will not only fuel hostility between the two nations, but also draw the attention of global stakeholders worried about the fallout of a conflict in South Asia. Trump's remarks serve as a reminder that the international community is watching closely and that India's decisions will not remain unnoticed or unchallenged. The warning also reflects how water has entered the broader narrative of power politics. When a global leader issues such statements, it signals that water disputes are no longer considered technical issues handled by engineers and bureaucrats, but part of high-level geopolitical debates. It also suggests that if tensions grow, global powers may be forced to intervene, either diplomatically or economically, to prevent escalation. For Pakistan, Trump's statement offers some reassurance that its concerns are valid and recognized internationally, even if practical support remains uncertain. For India, it is a subtle reminder that its global image as a rising power could be damaged if it is seen as bullying a weaker neighbor over essential resources. Beyond the immediate message, the larger implication is that the world understands the stakes of water politics in South Asia. In a region where both countries are trying to secure global investment, trade partnerships, and strategic alliances, The perception of recklessness could cost them more than they anticipate. Trump's warning captures this reality that short-term strategies of dominance can invite long-term instability, and in a nuclear region, instability is the last thing the world wants to witness. Pakistan's future in the face of floods, water scarcity, and India's growing strategic maneuvers depends entirely on the presence of visionary leadership that can think beyond short-term political gains. The country has for decades been trapped in a cycle of reactive decision-making where leaders only respond to disasters once they occur instead of preparing in advance. This lack of foresight has left Pakistan vulnerable not only to climate-induced catastrophes but also to geopolitical pressures. A true visionary leader would recognize that building dams, strengthening water management systems, and investing in climate resilience are not just infrastructure projects but matters of national survival. Without bold decisions today, the challenges of tomorrow will only multiply, leaving the country weaker and more dependent on others. One of the most urgent priorities for such leadership is to move beyond political divides. Projects like Kalabag Dam have been stalled for decades not because of technical impossibility, but because of mistrust among provinces and lack of unity at the national level. A leader with vision must build consensus, assure fair distribution of resources, and convince all stakeholders that water security is a collective interest, not a provincial battle. Without this unity, Pakistan will remain paralyzed by internal disputes while its external threats grow stronger. Visionary leadership must have the courage to put national interest above political convenience and build trust through transparency and equitable policies. In addition to internal unity, Pakistan's leadership must also strengthen its diplomatic posture. India's new dam projects and water strategies cannot be countered with protests alone. They require intelligent negotiation backed by international law, regional alliances, and global awareness. A capable leader would not allow Pakistan to be isolated in this matter, but would work to mobilize international opinion, highlight the risks of destabilizing the Indus Waters Treaty, and seek arbitration when necessary. This proactive diplomacy can prevent unilateral actions by India from becoming fate's accomplice. At the same time, leadership must prepare the nation to adapt to climate change with modern technology. Efficient irrigation systems, early flood warning mechanisms, reforestation, and sustainable urban planning are essential measures that only determined leadership can implement. Pakistan's people have the resilience and willpower to face challenges, but without a guiding vision, their efforts remain scattered. A leader who can inspire unity, push through tough reforms, and invest in long-term solutions will give Pakistan the shield it needs against both natural disasters and geopolitical threats. In times when water is as valuable as oil and security as critical as sovereignty, only visionary leadership can secure the nation's survival and future prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look at the recurring floods, the unbuilt dams, the strategic water maneuvers of our neighbors, and the warnings from global powers, one truth becomes clear: Pakistan is standing at a crossroads of history. We can either continue to live in cycles of destruction and reaction, or we can rise with vision, unity, and courage to build a secure future. Water is not just a natural resource. It is the lifeblood of our survival, the fuel of our economy, and the guarantee of our sovereignty. If we fail to secure it, we risk losing not just crops and homes, but our independence and dignity. Yet if we succeed, Pakistan can turn these challenges into opportunities, transforming floods into stored energy, scarcity into abundance, and weakness into strength. This is not a choice for tomorrow, it is a responsibility for today. Our children deserve a nation that is prepared, a leadership that is courageous, and a society that stands united in the face of adversity. The world is watching, our rivals are planning, and time is running out. But with determination, foresight, and collective will, Pakistan can and must take charge of its destiny. Good luck to all of you in carrying this message forward. And thank you for listening with open hearts and minds.